when I went to Iquitos first time in 1981, there was very, very little tourism of any kind. There was a bit of ecotourism. Ayahuasca, there was no tourism around ayahuasca at that time. It was kind of an obscure thing. But then in the 90s, people became aware of ayahuasca and they would come to Iquitos to find a shaman. I think that on one level, people are looking for, a travel adventure. I mean, something like that, and especially in my generation, we grew up with Carlos Castaneda and the teachings of Don Juan and all that, which is mostly fiction, right? I mean, maybe a kernel of truth there, but the idea to go find your shaman and learn. I mean, it's the same thing that motivated people to go to India and find their guru, the same idea. And so I think it's the idea of some kind of an adventure, looking for, a secret or a meaningful experience. And I think that's the other thing, is that people, crave, I think, meaningful experiences. And I think that people, our culture is spiritually bereft in some ways. It's very hard to get a genuine spiritual experience in our culture. I mean, the religions that many people, organized religion is kind of doesn't really provide that anymore, and actually discourages direct spiritual experience, and I think many people feel they're not getting it from our traditions. They want to go outside our culture and look for something meaningful. I think that is really what motivates people to go to the Amazon in search of ayahuasca, or to even seek it out in their own communities. I don't think that people who go looking for this, or by and large, they're not thrill seekers. These aren't people out to, just take drugs in the jungle. It's not really that. I think that's not really fair. I think that people who go are pretty serious about it, usually. And sincere in what they're looking for, and very often clueless, but that's not a fault. That's just, you haven't done your homework, you don't really know what you're getting into. And I guess my brother and I are, icons for people who went to the Amazon and had not a clue of what we were getting into, but we survived, but it was, we had no idea how little we knew and how little prepared we were. And I think that, so on that level, I think that people are looking for, spiritual experiences. And then on the other side of that coin, I do think that partly what you're looking at here is this symbiotic, co-evolutionary relationship with this plant, which these two plants, the preparation. Indigenous peoples have this, they often say these are teachers. They have this idea that these are plant teachers. And I think that's an accurate thing. There's something that you can learn from these plants, and people want to access that knowledge, and it's used in the context of shamanism, so they want to go to a shaman and learn, and have the experience in the context of that practice. And there, people say, well, the ayahuasca tourism is ruining the tradition, or, well, it's certainly transforming it. I wouldn't say it's ruining it. It's actually keeping it alive, as I think I mentioned, but it is transforming it. And I think that I try to step back from it and look at it in terms of this symbiosis, and this, what we really have happening here is a co-evolutionary relationship with these plants. And it's not just ayahuasca, it's any plant that the human species finds useful. you're in a symbiosis with that. It makes something that you find useful. It makes, sometimes it's a food plant, sometimes it's a medicinal plant, sometimes it's a psychoactive plant. There are aspects of symbiosis to all of that, in that we tend to select and cultivate the plants that are useful to us because they give us something back, right? Something good to eat, or a medicinal benefit or something. That's all coevolution, really. And we take care of the plants and they take care of us. And we think, well, we're domesticating the plants. But as Michael Pollan and other people have pointed out, maybe the plants are domesticating us. We're certainly doing their bidding in the sense that, we're ensuring their survival. So there is that aspect to it. And I think you have to, if this is really a coevolutionary phenomenon, you have to step back a little bit and think about the time frame on which these things take place, because evolution is a slow process, and it plays out over millennia. So you can't really we've known ayahuasca, Western science has known ayahuasca for maybe 150 years. That's a very tiny slice of even historical time. So, we've had, our species has had a relation with ayahuasca, we're not sure, but, at least since 1000 BC, possibly much earlier than that. And I don't see any indication it's going to stop. It's only growing. So you have to think about how do we get to this place? You're looking at this sort of, slice of historical time. It's a very interesting slice. It's like this is the era where ayahuasca escaped from its home and it went all over the world. So that's interesting in terms of, as an ethnobotanist, as an ethnopharmacologist, it won't be the first time that's happened. Look at coffee, look at chocolate, look at all these things. But those things are different because ayahuasca has the potential to transform consciousness. And I think it's doing that. I think if, people go to South America in search of these experiences, or they find places within their community where they can have these experiences, and what they come away with, interestingly, maybe they're looking for something more personal, some issue about their mental health or depression or addiction or whatever. They can get healing for that. But what they often come away with is a renewed realization of our relationship with nature and sort of this symbiotic thing. And in my talks, I'm sure you've heard me say, I think ayahuasca is kind of an ambassador for the rest of the biosphere that's trying to send a message to us, the problematic primates, the species that's causing all the trouble in global equilibrium. And basically the message is, wake up. You have to wake up, and you have to re-understand your relationship with nature as a species, that you have to realize that you're part of this, you're not separate from it. And it's not here for you to own, and it's not here for you to exploit. It's here for you to be part of and nurture as much as possible. And, I guess my messianic message, or my take-home message when I talk about this is, the scientists, global climate change and all that is accelerating. It's happening very rapidly. And the scientists are sort of back over here saying, wake up, this is important, you have to pay attention to this. This is not, and politicians, governments, corporations are sort of not really responding to it. And sort of it's almost like the community of species is getting more and more, hysterical in a sense. They want us to pay attention to this message. And so they've deployed ayahuasca as as an ambassador to our species, because we're not going to really respond to or deal with the environmental issues that we face unless we shift consciousness first. There has to be a global consciousness shift. I think the ayahuasca is trying to catalyze this. And, more or less successfully, but it remains to be seen. I mean, it's a kind of a race against time in some ways. One of the things, Daniel Friedman, who was a well-known LSD researcher, he pointed out that a lot of what you experience under psychedelics is a sense of portentousness. Things are portentous, they're meaningful. This is why you can stare at a rose for 12 hours, because it's just the most amazing thing that you've ever seen. Psychedelics help you to focus on that. And then the other side of that is this idea of the mysterium tremendum, the transcendent reality that is more than we can comprehend, but somehow really impactful. So I think psychedelics facilitate that as well. What's the evolutionary advantage to that? I don't know, except that it gives you the ability to, you can visualize something internally and you can manifest it externally as a piece of art, or maybe a piece of technology, or maybe something that you put out there. And and we're surrounded by things that existed in somebody's head at sometimes. Nature didn't make these things, we made these things. So we have ideas, and we put ideas out into the world in terms of things that we make, because we got this opposable thumb thing going on, as well as this restless brain that is such flooding us with ideas at all times. And that's been, an advantage evolutionarily up to now. Life is much better because we can invent things and create technology and all that. But now we've reached a point where we're also seeing the danger of it as well. Technology, we're very, very clever. But we're not very wise. And I think that is the main challenge that we're faced with. And I think that's right now what the plant teachers are trying to teach us, basically wake up, you monkeys. You're wrecking things. You're really destabilizing the sort of systems that are keeping things going. So you need to wake up before it's too late. And we have to bring our, sort of wisdom in sync with our abilities, and in a certain way we have to, we're already very clever. We're far too clever by half, right? What we haven't achieved yet is wisdom. How are we going to deploy this cleverness? How are we going to use these things? Because technology in itself, and these drugs are technology in a certain way, but technology is morally neutral, right? It's not anything, this is part of the problem with the conversation about drugs, because people say, well, drugs are bad, cocaine. No, they're not bad. They just have their properties that they have. Human behavior is bad or good. That's the moral dimension. And so we have to, these plants are moral teachers in a certain way. They can teach us how to behave in a way that's ethical and life nourishing, not life destroying. And I think that's another aspect of what comes out of the psychedelic experiences. People have they come away, it's the indigenous worldview is pretty much like this, but often people from Western cultures, they come away with a feeling that, everything is alive. And so animism, right? Everything from the rocks to the trees to whatever, it's all has a certain intelligence, a certain and pantheism. The idea that the universe itself is divine. God's not something outside the universe that created it. It is the universe becoming more conscious and more aware of itself. So people, biophilia, this love of living things, I think psychedelics tend to stimulate that, foster that feeling too. And we need that. That's what we have to rediscover, is reverence for living things, so that we can take on this role of being nurturers of nature and not exploiters. That's the key lesson we've got to learn.